Welcome. This month, as we continue to explore sacred spaces, we are thinking about the desert. There are countless stories of desert encounters throughout Scripture. So perhaps it's not really such an unusual place to encounter God and experience healing and transformation. And yet, many of those who did encounter God in wilderness places certainly were not expecting to meet with God in just the way they did, or even at all. We acknowledge that there's nowhere God is not present, that there's nobody God does not want to meet with, and that given the incredible complexity and diversity of the universe, there are no places not imbued with the sacred presence of the Creator. And yet, we are sometimes surprised by the unexpectedness of these sacred encounters. God's desire to meet with us, to bring us to full and abundant life, is seen in all divine encounters. This story is the story of a runaway, pregnant Egyptian slave. We may no longer be surprised at how God works, but this woman certainly was. Let's reflect together on what God is saying to us through this encounter, and how our hardest, driest places can become healing spaces of grace. God, you are our God. We earnestly seek you. We thirst for you. Our whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Abram agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, "You're responsible for the wrong I'm suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she's pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." "Your slave is in your hands," Abram said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarah mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. I long to drink of you, O God, drinking deeply from the streams of pleasure flowing from your presence. My longings overwhelm me for more of you. My soul thirsts, pants, and longs for the living God. I want to come and see the face of God. Day and night, my tears keep falling, and my heart keeps crying for your help. My deep need calls out to the deep kindness of your love. All day long, your promises of love pour over me. Through the night I sing your songs, for my prayer to you has become my life. Lord, you are my fountain of strength. How could you forget me? The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was a spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarai, she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, Go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count. The angel of the Lord also said to her, You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Mistreated, pregnant, alone. An Egyptian slave named Hagar flees into the desert. With nowhere to go, no resources, no help in sight, she comes to a spring in the desert and stops. She's exhausted, frightened. Who knows what else she might be feeling. It is here, near this spring in the desert, that she realizes she is not alone. God sees her, speaks with her, and speaks words of promise over her. Perhaps the most amazing part of this story for Hagar is being seen and heard. She's a slave. Slaves are invisible until they are needed for some task. She's a woman. Women in ancient times were unheard and unvalued. She is unwanted. Even though she's pregnant, the father of her child cares so little about her, he wipes his hands off her. So she finds herself alone in the desert. And not alone. The God of all creation sees her, notices her, and speaks with her. One interesting thing I note about this encounter, God did not fix everything. In fact, it seems like he did not fix or transform anything. He saw Hagar, heard her, spoke to her, spoke promises over her and her unborn child, and sent her back to the mistress who was mistreating her, back to the father of her child who ignored her, back to further persecution. There was no rescue from her situation, no easy answer. There was no promise that things would get better. There was, however, the promise to her unborn child, a promise that her descendants would be too numerous to count. Perhaps, just perhaps, It was enough for Hagar, for once, to be heard and to be seen for herself, for simply who she was. Hagar responded by naming God as the God who sees me. And she seems to rejoice that she had seen the one who sees her. And the well even came to bear that name, the God who sees. So, without an easy answer or an answer of any kind, without any miracle or change of circumstance, Hagar is sent back to precisely those circumstances that caused her to flee. But now, she knows she is seen and heard, and she knows that God knows and holds her future. And this is not the end of the story. She does give birth to a son, and 14 years later she again finds herself in the desert, and again God meets with her and speaks his promise over her. This time there's no going back. God is with them, and Hagar and her son make a new life for themselves in the desert, and her descendants become too numerous to count. It is challenging in some ways to read this encounter. A pregnant, runaway slave, and a God who does not rescue her from her predicament, but sends her back. As I reflect on this, I wonder, what is God saying to me in this encounter? When has God met with me and sent me back to my own difficult circumstances, sometimes without any obvious signs of comfort or encouragement? What has this been like for me? As I think about this encounter, I realize for me that it is being seen and heard by God that is most significant. This enables me to face whatever circumstances I find myself in. Think about the tough times in your life, when you have found yourself in a hard, dry, lonely place. How have you encountered God? When have you been unexpectedly seen and heard by God? What have such experiences revealed to you about God? Does this have anything to say to you in your current situation? David stayed in the wilderness strongholds and in the hills of the desert of Ziph. Day after day, Saul searched for him, but God did not give David into his hands. O my Lord, I am in a dry land, all dried up and cracked by the violence of the north wind and the cold. But as you see, I ask for nothing more. You will send me both dew and warmth when it pleases you. God says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." Lord, when I find myself in hard, dry places, when I feel alone, abandoned, persecuted, I know that you are with me, even when I don't feel it. You see me, even when it seems you are invisible. You hear me, even when I can't seem to hear your voice. Your promises hold and sustain me. May you who are thirsty come to Jesus and drink. May you who believe in him flow with streams of living water from within. May you who are thirsty come and experience the free gift of the water of life. May you drink and be satisfied. May you come and your thirst be quenched. Amen.